Alright, so how's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how to repair rod guides. Now, typically, two different types of guides. There's this, by the way, this is not the right holder for it. This is kind of ghetto rigged everything. But yeah, typically there's rod tip. Regular guides, I don't know what the hell they call these. They're just like the regular normal guides that you get on a rod. So one of the most common things is on this one, as you can see, there's no ceramic ring in the guide. So this is what it would look like with this ceramic ring in it. I gotta get here because I have the camera manually focused, so hopefully that's in focus right there. But you can see the little gray ceramic ring on the inside. So we're gonna be taking this off. So you might ask, how do you do it? Well, you just get a this is like a box cutter blade kind of thing, but I just use it without that. And as you know, there's a epoxy over it, which I showed how to do it in my rod building video, which I'll put the link to that somewhere in the video, I guess. But all you really do is you don't want to go, because there should be some epoxy here, and as you can see, and one thing before you start, you should probably take a picture of the guide or wrap or whatever you're doing that you're taking apart, so you can kind of get a sense of what it looked like. But I mean, there are a bunch of different on this rod that all these guides each look the same, so I'm not really too worried about it. All it is, it's black to hold the guide on, blue middle band, and then these two gold outer bands. So it's not the biggest job, but all you're gonna really do is you can't see it because my thumb's in the way. See if we can do this. You're kind of just going to go up the epoxy, and it's really bad to be cutting towards yourself, but hopefully I don't chop a finger off. That's something my dad always told me. Don't ever cut towards yourself, the knife or whatever you're doing. Sorry, Dad. Kind of hard to do this without, I can't really push hard enough with just the, yeah, you're kind of just going to go up it, and just gonna try and peel away the epoxy. Oh, here. There we got the gold coming off. The gold just peeled right off of it. I mean, you can worry about cleaning it up once you have the got a majority of it off. Can't really, hopefully this is not I mean, you guys can tell what I'm kind of doing. It's hard to do this easy when you have to. Okay, I don't want to do this completely wrap by wrap, but plus with the tip of the rod being so flexible, it's kind of pain. So once you get to the bottom wrap of the wrap, because it's there's like black thread underneath it, then you put the guide on it, and then you go back over, so there's essentially two layers of thread, and you want to be careful not to scratch up the blank. Not being there. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's either the epoxy the way it hardened, but I'm pretty sure there's still a bottom wrap on here, so we're doing all right. Alright, this is going to probably take like a few minutes, so I'm going to stop recording and then pick back up when I got this almost done, so be right back. Alright, so hopefully I got enough of this thread and epoxy off. Just the camera, it's hard to do, get it focused. You can see it looks pretty torn up and everything, but hopefully, I believe I got the top layer of thread here, there's a little bit there. Thunder's not happy. And then I got a little, oh, the camera was totally not in focus. Alright, let's manual this, because this is probably going to be doing this the whole time. That's it. It looks pretty good. So, see if we can pull this. Oh, there we go. Alright, so you can see. So, now all there's left to do is clean this up. Still got the gold band here in the front. We're just going to keep going. Probably be a good idea once you're got a lot of the thread and everything off to go back and have to go find some sandpaper somewhere around the house. Just to like smooth it out so you have a nice even surface. But once again, here you want to be kind of careful not to cut in the blank. I think I actually, yeah, that's the blank. Okay, so this would be thread right here. It's hard to tell with the black on black. Can't really. And then plus it's like epoxy that's hardened on. Okay. The epoxy has the look of the thread once you pull it out, so it looks, there's more thread when there's really not. So that, okay. My hand's not, oh, I get this little bit of gold. Okay. Like the tip of the rod, it's a little bit pain in the ass because the blank isn't as strong. Once you get to the other end, luckily on this rod I only have to do this one guide at the tip and then two more at the last two guides, I believe, or the first two, depending on which way. Here's some thread. It's really just whatever way you can figure out is the easiest to get the thread and epoxy off. Rod builder dude that has the best way to do it, but I don't know it, so definitely a very helpful thing is using a new box cutter blade, because you want it as sharp as possible, but it also makes this kind of dangerous. Very easy to slip. I was thinking about getting a glove on my left hand. Probably should do both hands with gloves, because these things, this end holding it like this kind of sucks. It's a good bit. Like, so you can see the black thread with the gold band and the epoxy there. That bit of gold. You kind of want to get some of the epoxy off that's just on the blank itself, so it'll have a smooth transition from the old epoxy to the new epoxy you're putting on. Which wouldn't be a bad idea before you, now I'm thinking about it, before you start everything, if you took the box cutter and like went like just ahead of the gold band on this, it would have been just completely spun it around, like cutting the epoxy, so that way once you get it, it wouldn't go past that point. If that makes sense. So this looks pretty good. Yeah, that's all. It's just some epoxy that's on the blank and stuff. So I'm gonna go try and find some sandpaper really quick, and then we'll get to doing this. Alright, so we got a little piece of sandpaper right here. So I'm just gonna go along this and smooth it out a little bit. It's alright how it's like showing up white. I mean, you're gonna go over it with whatchamacallit, black thread, so you won't even see it. I'm not gonna do a lot, just to get it a little bit smooth. Probably not a good idea to breathe all this stuff in, because I'm assuming it's fiberglass. So hold your breath. Okay. That's all you really need. Yeah, that smoothed it out pretty good. Let's cut off this piece of gold thread right there. Come on. Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty smooth. That's probably as smooth. You could probably get it really smooth, but yeah, that'll do. So next step is thread. So alright, got this. So I got a box of thread here, and you're gonna wanna match up the colors. So pretty common thread, black. Got some black thread right here. Next was gold. Actually blue. Blue is next because I see blue first. It's blue. And it's gonna be kind of hard to match it up with the colors. This is probably, without going to the store and buying new thread, that's about as close as we're gonna get. Plus the fact that it probably, if it's an older rod, like this one's a few years old, here's the gold, the sun has changed the color of it anyway, so it's, to me it doesn't really bother me that much, you know. Let's get the color close enough. Let's put this away. Alright. So, tape. Alright, so now got it sanded down. Got a little piece of tape here. This is like painter's tape or whatever. Doesn't have to be anything specific, just this comes off a lot easier. So you're gonna put your first layer of black thread down. So if the rod you're repairing guide doesn't have black thread, then you use whatever color thread you are. So here's the tag into the thread. Here you can see. Put the piece of tape there. So depending on which way you want to go on which way direction you want to, doesn't really matter. But for here, we're gonna put the tape not on my wrist because you can see, I put the thread on, you can see it through the tape actually, and you're just gonna put it like up here. No, I don't even tighten the tape because it doesn't really matter. So now I'm gonna rotate the rod with the thread holding it close to it, and you're gonna get the thread. I think you can kind of see. Let's zoom in a little. So you could kind of see right here, if it would focus, where the old epoxy starts to the point where I took it off. So you're gonna try and get close to that. Why is it not focusing that camera, please? Okay. So I might even actually go over some of the old, yeah, I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna go over the old epoxy, just so when we put the new epoxy on, this black thread will cover it up. So basically you're gonna go almost a full turn around, and then you're gonna go back over the thread. Which, I covered this a lot better in my rod building video. So pretty much you're just gonna keep rotating it, and since you went over the thread, it's kind of locking it down. So I'm just gonna do it a bunch of times. It doesn't, there's not really a certain number, but that should be good here. So now you're gonna take the other end, make sure the thread yeah, right there. See, now it unravels. Just trying to say, make sure you keep the thread tight, or else that happens and makes it a pain. Which if you're really good, you'd have the thing, like a thread holder thing, which this is not gonna work. Well, I'm gonna take this other piece of tape I had, and I'm gonna tape the thread down just to keep tension on it. Undo the tape here, and as you can see, the original tag end of the thread is completely loose, and you're gonna follow it back to where the other wraps. I can't really tilt it because then it'll loosen it. You gotta see where the thread goes under the other wraps, and you'll take your box cutter, and you're gonna want to put the box cutter like this way, because what you're trying to do is you're gonna pull the thread against the box cutter so that it'll kind of snap it back under the other thread that you've gone over it, so it will go underneath that, and it won't, the little tag end won't be poking out Which on the under wrap, it doesn't really matter that much because you're gonna go over it again with the other thread, but where it matters is on the, I guess I'll call it the over wrap. So that's where it, because otherwise it'll stick up and then the epoxy won't go on even, and then it'll harden like that, and then it might leave a sharp little end on the, I mean, it won't look good. I don't know if it's sharp enough to cut you, maybe eventually. So now that we cut it, we're just going to do a bunch of wraps around it. So you want to make sure, this part is kind of important for the under wrap, not for anything visually, but kind of want to make sure it's tight. So when you're going to do an over wrap, the over wrap thread doesn't go through, like, in between it. But since I'm going to be doing black, once you put the epoxy on, since it's like black on black, it won't show up, because like how the epoxy's clear, like, I don't know, is it called distortion, or I forget what it's called, because like the epoxy will make it bubble, and then you don't really see the depth of the black thread. There's definitely a word for it. Like refraction, would it be? But kind of like water. But yeah, I don't really, like, now you can see where the black thread's going on. So I'm gonna stop the video here, and then I'll pick back up once I'm a lot closer to the end, because I'm pretty much doing the same thing. Alright, so I'm almost near the end of the wrap here. You can see here where it's a little bit white. That's where the epoxy starts. So I'm gonna get a little bit closer to it. And then, see, there's like a knot in the thread because it's coming off a little uneven. So we're gonna get closer. Go over it. Pretty much you want to leave enough space for what we're about to do, probably. I don't know, 5 or 6 wraps. Okay, so we got it pretty much covered, so there's just a little bit left. So now you're gonna take the thread and you're gonna cut it, which I can't, well, I don't know if it'll show. This is gonna be out of focus, kind of. See, I have like the spool of thread right here. And then I'm gonna cut the thread. And the next step is a pretty major part of this. I'm gonna manually focus this. You're gonna take your finger and you're gonna hold it so that this doesn't unravel and all the work you just did just comes apart. So this is a little bit, whatchamacallit, hollow core. You can get monofilament, or this is hollow core. Monofilament, probably a better idea to use the same thread you're using, but this is just a little bit. You can see there's 2 tag ends. You're gonna make it into a loop, and you're gonna take that loop, and we're gonna go underneath the thread, and kind of like this. So it's underneath. Can I get the? So the one piece of thread is over the 2 pieces of the hollow core. So now you're gonna, if it cooperates, it's coming apart. Okay. So now you're just gonna go continue wrapping like you would, but now you're just going over the thread or hollow core or monofilament, whatever you're using, in this case hollow core. So you're gonna do this a few times, like I said, I think I said 5 or 6, 5, 6, 7, whatever. And you're gonna make sure you're holding it pretty tight. And I totally have not been counting, so I'm just kind of wrapping it. Alright, this should be good. So now, take your finger again to keep tension on the thread, like that. And we're gonna take the thread tag end and put it through the loop, and then pull it through, and then now you hold the thread here, and then it's hard to show this. You're gonna pull the other end of the loop through it, so you can see. Oh, you can't see. You can see how the loop is getting smaller with the thread in it. So now, right? Yeah, this is where you want to use. Yeah, you definitely want to use a thread. Don't use hollow core because you can see how it's like bunching up right here. This might actually break the thread when I try and pull it through. But pretty much what you're gonna do is definitely use thread. If this breaks, I'm gonna have to redo it again. But you're just gonna pull the hollow core through like that. So now the thread isn't in this, so you won't be needing this. And you can see the threads right here. Let's see if I can zoom it in. I got my small lens, so I won't zoom that far. But now you can see how the thread is underneath the however many times you went over it. So then you're gonna kind of push it tight, just to make sure it's nice and even. And then that was where we did before. Take the box cutter and you're gonna kind of try and line it up. And you don't want to like move the box cutter at all. You're kind of just pulling the thread over the blade, and then it should snap back under a little bit. And it not too bad. A little bit of thread sticking out, but it's all right. So that would complete the under wrap. So now I'm gonna find out which guide you need. And I believe this is the right size. Let me make sure. These are kind of all over the place. Yep, that's the same. So usually it's like the rod tip, and then the next two guides will usually be the same size, and the next two will be the same size. Sometimes it's different sometimes, but yeah. Actually, I have to stop it here because I'm about to run out of camera battery. Okay, so new camera battery. Actually, it's a new camera battery, and it's already showing it's at half. So yeah, you're gonna get your rod guide. And you're going to take a piece of tape, and you're going to match the rod guide. You're going to take the tape, if it'd help if I put it on screen, and put it on the one, I forget what, I totally am blanking on what these ends are called. And also what you're going to want to do is take some sandpaper, kind of rough up the bottom. I like to do it at kind of an angle, like this, so that it'll like kind of make a little sharp point on the end of this. Like not very big, but just a little bit. And it's also not bad if you just sandpaper over, just to kind of make it a little bit rough to hold the thread on it a little bit, because I guess, I don't know if it's paint or whatever they have on it. Did both ends of it. Actually, I have a sharpening stone that works a lot better than this. But yeah, we're gonna do that a little bit, just to rough it up. And put the tape back on, almost forgot that part. So here, now you're gonna try and line it up right in the middle. And you wanna make sure it's lined up. Actually, I'm totally forgetting a part. So, since on this rod wrap it had blue in the middle and the two gold bands on the outside, you're gonna kind of like eye up where the middle of this would be, like kind of take the guide, hold it up. You can kind of see this isn't gonna be exact. Definitely for the people that want to be exact, you can use tape measure or something to measure it out. But I'm kind of just eyeing it up right here a little bit. So you're gonna do the same thing. Put the tape, put the thread. This is so hard to do with manual focus. It's so close that it's unfocusing part of it. So you're gonna do the same thing, except the blue thread's not really showing up as blue on the black, kinda. So you're gonna kind of go to the middle here, probably right about here. And since it's not that big of a wrap, We're gonna do the same thing though. Bring it up here. A little more in the middle. Should finish out in the middle. So you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna go around once and then back over the thread. Now since it's gonna be such a small little wrap, I'm only gonna do this. Oh, I think this will be the third time I went over it. So do that. Take another piece of tape. Tape it down just to keep. I didn't really keep the tension on it. Tape it. Tape it is still not. Okay. Keep tension on it, and then same thing. Cut the thread. Remember to pull the thread against the blade. Don't use the blade to cut it, like saw it kinda. And then gonna do what you're gonna do. So to get this exact, you'd try and like measure how it's not even, I don't even know if I'd call that like 1/4 of an inch. So we're just gonna do a few wraps. So that's probably big enough, and then to finish it. So I should have cut off. All right. I'm trying to like, I keep kind of remembering as I go here. Cut that. I'm gonna take, this black thread kind of sucks because it's so skinny. It's gonna be hard to grab. But for this, you definitely want to use solid colored thread, whereas you can't really tell, but actually you can kind of tell. It kind of looks like it's squarish. That's because the metallic kind of threads, they aren't like solid thread, so when you use it to pull the tag in through the thread bands, it might come apart. So I'm going to do what I did before with the hollow core. This is just a black thread I've been using. And you're going to put it underneath the wrap, pull it up. And you can tell I didn't keep it tight enough, so it's kind of coming undone. So I'm going to keep doing how you've done. This isn't actually exactly in the middle either. I mean, I can make it a little bit thicker, so then it's a lot thicker than the other bands, but now you're gonna cut it, and you're gonna put the, if you could see it with my hand in the way, you're gonna take the blue thread tag in, put it through the black thread loop, and keep tension on it, and pull, just like we did before. Oh, wow, the black thread broke. That's what I was worried about. But yeah, you can see how easily the blue, like metallic thread came apart. That's why you don't want to use the metallic thread for this, and you want to use the other thread you want to make sure it doesn't come apart. But see, it worked out. But see, like now it's like black here and like blue there. Like that's the problem with it. So you want to be kind of careful with the metallic thread. So same thing. You're just gonna pull the thread against the blade. And even though it was frayed, it didn't come out too bad. A little piece sticking out right there, but I'm afraid if I pick it, it's gonna make it come apart. So you're gonna kind of want to push the thread together. Okay, so now you're gonna flip the rod upright. This battery's about to go out too, what the hell? All right, so now we're on the third camera battery. Hopefully this one's charged. So back to what I was saying before, after you sand the rod guide down a little bit, you're gonna put a little piece of tape on the rod guide, and you're gonna try and line it up as best you can with the other rod guides, so it's on there straight. And you also, now that you have the blue band, you gotta make sure the blue band is in between the gap of the rod guide. So we're gonna put that like so. and you're gonna kind of put it on. It doesn't have to be on really tight because you're gonna be taking the tape off anyway, but just enough to hold the guide on there. So it's kind of like that. It's hard to see the blue thread with the blue tape, but you get the idea. So now, what are you gonna do? Same thing you've been doing. Take your black thread and take the black thread. It's kind of out of focus because I hold it far away. Another piece of tape. This time it might be a little bit easier to do the tape on this end instead of like having the thread go over everything. But yeah, so now we're just gonna rotate it around. And now you're up the, I think it's called the foot of the guide now I remember it correctly. So if it's not, whatever, I'm calling it the foot, which is the part we sanded. So now you're gonna put the thread on it, and here, the first couple wraps you kind of want to make tight so it holds it really steady, and then as you're going back over the thread again, like you've done before, and you're gonna go. Except it's kind of, this is when it gets a little bit more difficult because the grooves of the under wrap thread kind of grab the thread from you, so it's hard to make it a little bit even. But since it's black on black, it's alright if you leave a little bit of space in between the threads, because once you put the epoxy on it, you won't be able to really tell. It all kind of just makes it look like one solid black color. I'm going to be doing that. Do it a few times. It's only really hard if you're doing like a different color kind of deal. Wish I had a third hand because now I need to pull off a piece of tape. Because we used the 2 pieces of tape I was using. Alright, let's see if we can do this. Tape the black thread down like we've been doing. And take this piece of tape off. So now the tag end of the thread's free. And find out where it is. And this one's a little harder to do because the rod guide's in the way. And without cutting the other thread. Actually, I'm going to do this completely the opposite way we've been doing this. Kinda. Because the rod guide kind of makes this pain in the ass. There. Tape off. And keep on wrapping. Where I cut it, it kind of left a really crappy tag end. So I'm going to try and cover it so that it doesn't stick through. But this definitely would be a lot faster. Like, to me, I think it's a lot of fun doing this myself, especially when you build the whole rod, but fixing it's kind of fun too. But if I would not hesitate if I had to replace a bunch of the guides on a rod. Just take it to a tackle shop or whoever. Well, I mean, it could get kind of expensive if you're doing like a bunch of rods. But they have the machine that spins the rod for you, which would make these kind of wraps a lot quicker. Though I've never used it. I've always just spun the rod by hand. But I do have a machine spinner for the epoxy part because that takes a few hours and there's no possible way you're going to be rotating a fishing rod around. See, now this is where it gets hard at the end of the foot because the thread is wanting to slide down the angle And this is where I should have roughed it up a little bit more. I'm gonna do it kind of light here. It's hard. Probably blocking it. I'm holding the thread up so that with the end of my fingernail so it doesn't slide down. Probably blocking it from camera, but it's the only way I can really get it. But yeah, see here, like that. I don't know if it's picking it. Like that. Yeah, you can kind of see the thread sliding down it. This complicates things, so I'm just gonna kind of bunch it up. Now I went to the bottom of the foot and I'm wrapping up the foot, which I did. This guy's not gonna come out. Like, this is not the right way to do it, but it'll work because now it's gonna be like a pretty thick part right here. But again, it won't really matter because it's the black thread. If this was different colors and stuff, yes. So now you're gonna do, but the only real thing this will do is once I put the epoxy on and it hardens, it might make a little bubble area where the thread's thicker than the other wraps of it, which if I was doing this for someone else, I would redo the wrap, but it's my rod for me, so it doesn't really bother me. So we did that a few times, and now I'm gonna try the hollow core again for this loop part because it's a lot thicker and it seemed to work before. So I take the loop, put it under the thread like that, and wrap it a few times. Okay. Now, put your finger on it to keep tension, and cut the thread. Take the thread, put it through the loop. Make sure it's all a little bit even. And pull it through. Pull the hollow core side through. Make sure it's a little tight. And find where it went under. Pull the thread against the blade, and you're done. So that's one end of it. And then to do the other side, take the tape off, carefully to not mess up the thread. And you're gonna do the exact same thing for that. So I'm not gonna show that because it's the exact same thing we just did. Take it and pull the thread, boom, done. So if you were doing black and blue, or is it black and gold, who knows, but we're doing black, blue, and gold, you would be done. So now to put the little, like how it's up here, the little gold wrap on the end, it's the exact same thing you did with the blue, just a little bit smaller. Take your gold thread, take a piece of tape, let's do the front first, tape the gold thread on, oops, sorry camera, and twist. So here I'm gonna go to the end of the black thread where I stopped, right about here. And then gonna go around once and then over the thread like you've been doing to lock it down. And again, since it's a little bit smaller wrap, you're gonna do it a couple of times because you're trying to save space. And tape the gold thread down. I'm going to tighten it by wrapping it. Okay. Undo that piece of tape. I'm going to find where it goes under. There. Oh shit. See, this is where having like the spool holder thing comes in a lot of. Cut it. Helps out a lot to keep tension on the thread. So you're going to try and pull it together to keep it tight because you don't want to see any gaps in that. Go over it, and then take your loop line. We'll call it loop line because it's going to be whatever material you decide to use. Same deal. Pull it through. Now go over it a few times. It's probably good. Cut the gold thread. So it would cut. And then take the gold thread, put it through the loop. And then once again with the metallic kind of shiny threads, like if you have the thread yourself, you can automatically feel the difference in it. But again with the metallic threads, you want to be kind of careful when pulling it so it doesn't come apart. And then pull it through. Actually, it went pretty good. Didn't break at all. The thread didn't pull apart. And pull it against. Boom. And push it tight. Help even out the thread a little bit. Make sure there's no gap. And yeah. You can kind of see right there, actually, it's sticking up a little bit. But maybe it'll, hopefully when I put the epoxy on, it'll lay down. If not, I won't mind. Alright, so I did the other part of the gold, and actually now that I'm realizing it, the bottom piece, the bottom thread, this bottom gold band is a lot smaller than the top gold band, but I'm going to try and push it together. Maybe it'll help look it a little bit even. And I got the blue thread in the center. So now I'm going to do 2 more guides on this rod. I'm not going to record that because it's the exact same thing. And then I'm going to show putting the epoxy and it drying and then the finished product, which I'm going to make that at a later time. So let's get to doing that. Alright, so how's it going, everybody? We're back building the rod and now it's time to put on the epoxy. So I'm assuming this part not many people are going to do because it requires you to have a, I don't even know what the hell they call it. Basically it's this little machine thing that spins the rod for you, which I could put a link in the description of the video to the thing I bought. I think it came with the motor mount thing that holds the rod and spins it and everything. And then also this little, oh well. Didn't think it was gonna be up that close. Hopefully this doesn't mess up the focus stuff. But yeah, this little like epoxy kit deal. I got it from Mudhole, but this Pro Coat epoxy and the CRB rod spin epoxy machine thing, I'm gonna call it. But yeah, this little kit comes with like these little shots of the epoxy that you need to mix together, and then some little cups, little mixers, and little brushes, which I used previously in my building a rod video. And yeah, if you want to watch that, you want to watch this, it's going to be the exact same in either video. So on this rod I repaired 2 of the guides. So this little light doesn't make it too bright. But I repaired 2 of the guides, or 3 of the guides, but I'm going to show 2 now because both of these are close together instead of going up to the front to show the other guide. Alright, so I've let the epoxy sit a minute or 2, and still got a little bit of bubbles in it, but yeah, so we got this little paintbrush thing. I mean it says a rod building brush. I doubt it. It looks like a regular paintbrush thing you would get from anywhere. So yeah, you're just gonna put the epoxy on it. I kind of like to As you can see, the rod's spinning because I turned on the machine to spin it. And yeah, you're kind of just gonna keep your brush on it and spread out the epoxy. And again, you don't really have to worry about putting too much epoxy, because if you do put too much, it'll form a little drop, and eventually, once it gets enough, it'll just drop off onto, in this case, the paper towel. Could be whatever you had on it. So if you keep the brush on it, it kind of spreads the excess out a little bit over it. I guess you shouldn't really be that stingy on the mixing of it, just so you have like enough epoxy. I might have to mix a little bit more to finish all three of them. It's kind of a little bit of a pain once you get to in between. But yeah, that's like a main part that you want to make sure you get a good amount of epoxy, is where like in between the guide, it has the possibility of forming like a little gap where it might not get epoxy in, and if you get any salt water, especially salt water, even fresh water, that could eventually get under and start like corroding, rusting, or whatever. Well, yeah, I'm gonna probably have to make more epoxy. This, whatever I just mixed is just about enough to finish off just this one guide, maybe. But yeah, you can even see, or hopefully you can kind of tell it's spreading out evenly. Wait till it gets to the other side. But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. You're just gonna do this to whatever guide you that you're fixing. And then once you get near the edges, you kind of want to keep it neat so it doesn't make, once you start to get to the rod blank part and off the thread. Yeah, I'm starting to see some bubbles kind of from where we mixed it, and the bubbles haven't gone out. But you kind of want to make like a neat little line of epoxy onto the rod blank. Which here I went up on it a little bit on the blank because of it was scratched a little bit when I was taking off the epoxy, so I figured put some black thread over it, which probably once it's in the bright sunlight you'll be able to see it, but it won't look as bad as if it was just the chipped fiber epoxy. So yeah, kind of most part you just want to like leave the brush there and let the rod rotate around. So yeah, that was probably just about enough epoxy to do the one guide. Gonna probably mix up a little more here. But it's kind of hard to get in between the guide. And again, you don't have to worry about messing it up really, because as it spins, it like balances itself out. Okay, so yeah, that's those two guides. I'm gonna do the third one off camera, and gonna let this sit overnight while it spins, and hopefully it'll be fixed in the morning. Alright, so now it's the next day, and I've let the epoxy spin overnight and the rod spinner thingy, and as you can see, it looks like a regular rod guide. Like up here you could kind of see where I was saying I kind of put the black thread, but I mean, if you stand back, like I can't see it right now. I mean, let's zoom in. I'm sure in the sunlight maybe you'll be able to see it, but unless you're really looking for it, you're probably not going to notice it. So that was the one guide. The next guide, again, I did the same thing up here with because it was like scratched a little, so I figured that would look a little bit better than having like white scratch marks. Kind of like, I don't know what the hell happened here. I thought about redoing this guide also, even though there's nothing wrong with it other than the scratch and the epoxy. I don't know if when we were moving, maybe the movers hit it or something, but I thought about going over it with epoxy again, but I figured that would just seal in the scratch marks, which, I mean, they're pretty deep scratch marks. I don't know what the hell happened, but I'm gonna leave it. And this other guide from the tip, this guy right here, see, looks the same, looks shiny. I think it's it's not really like damp, it's like kind of sticky to the touch, so I'm gonna let it dry for another day or two. But when I was talking about, I don't know if I can get it to show. You can kind of see where it's like a little bump. So it's like a little kind of bump. That would be right there. You can actually see it on there. It looks like a little. That would be where I cut the thread and it didn't cut all that well, so you can see how it sticks up through the epoxy. But I'm okay with it. If you're okay with it, good. If not, you'd have to redo it all. But actually, you wouldn't have to redo it all. You just have to redo the wrapping to make sure it's wrapped correctly. So that's how you do it. Again, you can do the thread work yourself. Take it to your local tackle shop. I know mine around here does it, and where I'm from, in Jupiter, Grand Slam, I just take it over there and they would do it for me. And now I got the rod spinning machine thing, and now I can do it myself, which for a normal person, I'm pretty sure you'd probably just go take it to your tackle shop, which would be a lot easier. But yeah, that's how you repair rod guides.